So this is what's been called a Slav squat, and
Why?
maybe we don't want to do this. It's too much. Hey, my name is Steph. Technically, I'm a native Russian speaker. Russian was my first language, but I do not speak it that well anymore. There's something called first language attrition. I actually grew up here in the United States, and I speak English very well, and I speak Russian like a 3-year-old.
Hello, my name is Aleksei. I was born and raised in Russia, so Russian is my native language, and I do speak English as well. And I know Spanish a little bit too. So
Me too.
yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
So, Alexei, how do you say hello in Russian?
Привет! Yeah, there's a kind of two versions of one is a formal, one is informal. So informal is gonna be привет. It's like a hey, hi. And the formal is gonna be здравствуйте. I think it's more like hi here.
Yeah.
in
And you
US.
wouldn't, there's certain like contexts that you wouldn't want to say привет in.
You would rather not say it in the office, when you walk into the office and you say, привет. Why do Russians drink so much vodka?
Well, funny story, Alexei. In Russian, the word vodka is a diminutive form of voda, which means water. So it's built into the language. Alcohol is just water. It's just what we drink.
I think I heard
Yeah.
something like that, but why? The thing is, maybe like people went through a lot of stuff,
Yeah, they're depressed.
Yeah, maybe that's why. It definitely was true, like in the 90s. Vodka, I would assume it's still the most popular, drink in Russia.
My parents always tell a story about how when I was a little girl, I used to like to say, if someone had trouble sleeping, I would say, "Попей водичка и постарайся уснуть." But I would say vodka.
Uh-huh.
It's supposed to mean like just drink a little water and try to fall asleep, but I would say drink a little vodka and try to fall asleep. The adults around me got a kick out of that. So where is Russian spoken?
Definitely in like past Soviet Union countries, so like Ukraine, like Belarus, for sure, like Kazakhstan. I mean, a lot of like most of the post-Soviet Union countries. Why does Russian sounds so harsh?
I think it all depends on who's listening and who's perceiving the harshness, right?
Yeah.
So as someone who grew up in America, I can attest to the fact that a lot of Russian people sound kind of harsh when they're speaking. Like I've definitely been at a wedding before where someone's grandma came up to give a speech, and if you didn't know what she was saying, it would sound like she was like angry at them for something, but all she's doing is just wishing them a happy and prosperous life together. But I do think that Russians culturally have a sort of directness that Americans find a little bit abrasive sometimes, because we like to kind of like tiptoe around things, and Russians will just say exactly what they're thinking. So
I don't know if I agree, because Russians not always say what's on their mind, especially if there are government people, Putin and stuff.
that'll stop you for sure.
He will definitely not gonna say what's on his mind.
Right.
Why does Russian use Cyrillic?
I think that's probably just the alphabet that they started with, right?
I guess so. I also don't know that much about the history of why they started to use like Cyrillic alphabet. I know that it just started from Kirill and Methodiy, who kind of invented the alphabet.
Probably as early as like the Proto-Slavic tongue, or I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Why is Russia so big?
I guess because it had a lot of wars and conquered a lot of territory.
That also, I feel like a lot of Russia's geographical territory is kind of like empty tundra, right? But it's kind of like Canada. Canada's huge, but there's not that many people in it.
You're absolutely right that there are parts of Russia where you cannot find, a human on a square like kilometers. Only bears.
There's so many bears in Russia.
Does Russian have dialects?
It's a great question. It must, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, there's a kind of golden gate. Not the golden gate, but
The circle?
golden circle.
Yeah.
Area. So they speak more like O-ish. So if people in Russia like say like in Moscow say like молоко, and in there they would say moloko, you know, more like all.
Lots of different slang in different parts, or?
I would say the slang words are very similar, especially like some like bad words. They are definitely like similar across all the country.
What do Russians eat for breakfast?
It really depends like where you live in Russia, like modern cities. They eat something like something like a sandwich. You would say it here like buterbrod in Russia. So something like
an open-faced sandwich.
Like a bread with like a little bit of cheese and ham or sausage, something like that. In more province sides of Russia, they definitely eat more like tvorog.
What's that?
Tvorog is farmer's cheese. It's
farmer's cheese, yeah.
Kind of like cottage cheese, but it's not as, it's like a little drier. It's one of my favorite things, for sure.
Yeah, so that farmer's cheese and sour cream. Yeah, if I want something not typical, I would go for blini, pancakes.
My grandma used to make blini on the weekend sometimes, so they're basically just like really thin crepes. And we would often like put jam and tvorog, that farmer's cheese in it, and berries, and it's so good.
Do you know, does Russia have genders?
Yeah, Russian has grammatical genders, so there's a masculine and a feminine for verb tenses, right? And then also, there's one for they, right? So on, ana, and ani. Do you know if there's others?
Yeah, there's ani is like a multiple.
Yeah.
And there's a ono is a
for like it. Right?
For like it, exactly.
What do Russian people look like?
That very interesting question. Look like me and you, and look like other people. You know, because there are a lot of nations live in Russia.
Yeah.
So that's why like all other
Eastern
people.
European. Well,
Eastern European, yeah.
It's like, for the most part, it's like very white, but also there's like some Central Asian people.
For sure.
Like from Kazakhstan and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I was born in a region like far east of Russia, where a lot of Korean people live. So like, and they all speak like Russian, definitely like fluently and like natively. So and there are a lot of, as I was saying like previously, like a lot of nations are represented in Russia. So it's all variety of people.
I have kind of like an uncanny knack for being able to like recognize other Russians in public. I don't know. There's just something about them. You know, like
that's very
I feel
interesting.
like old Russian ladies really love to wear shirts with rhinestones on them, and they like to dye their hair that like shade of like intense red.
It definitely used to be that you can tell that it's Russian people walking because like they used to love brands, you know, and you should have labels like everywhere. Yeah, definitely.
Well, they don't all wear Adidas tracksuits, so.
How good or bad is speaking Russian? Like, what do you like about the language?
I like about Russian that I'm definitely fluent in it, you know. So I can tell it that I think in Russian, and I need to translate in English.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I start to think in English, but most of the time, like I think in Russian. I mean, it's definitely my favorite language. Not just because I speak it, but also I like how it sounds.
I like Russian because I think there's something about it that sounds very melodic and soulful, and also there's just so many like I don't know, like I feel like I grew up with like my parents teaching me so many little like clever rhymes or little puns or idioms. Like Russian is full of little sayings that are just so like funny and clever.
Yeah, it's full of different kind of proverbs.
Yeah, I don't know how like ingrained in the culture this is because it's something that I grew up with, but every time I've tried to tell it to another Russian person, they're like, I've literally never heard that before. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Когда глаза закрываются, попа открывается.
I would say I've never heard of this.
Okay, so in English that means when the eyes close, the butt opens, and it's about farting in your sleep.
Who said
My
that?
dad.
Oh, your dad? I thought
No,
your grandma.
My dad would kill me.